1, 2, 3, 4.
Welcome back to the Talkin G-MAC podcast. I'm your host, Katie Gilhooly, and we'd like to welcome a reoccurring guest to the Talkin G-MAC podcast, Rachel McCool, who you met as our national SAAC rep the last time that she was on, but a little has transpired over the last 3 or 4 months, and as of late, she was just elected as the national SAAC chair for Division II National SAACs. We'll welcome, I guess, Madam President into the room as Rachel has joined us to talk a little bit more about her endeavors as National SAAC Chair. So first of all, congratulations, Rachel, on your appointment.
Thank you so much. It's truly such an honor to be elected into this position by my fellow D2 SAAC peers. It really means the world to me that they have that faith in my leadership skills to continue taking D2 SAAC into where, it's been so great and to continue that journey together. So I'm very excited.
As our national SAAC rep at the GMAC level, you serve on national SAAC as there's one representative from every conference. So that meant that you were going to NCAA convention, which happened a few weeks ago back in January in Washington, D.C., which you got to do a lot of really cool stuff. All of our national SAAC reps that get to travel to convention, I feel like the NCAA does a lot in trying to allow you all to be a part of that, what is a really huge convention with thousands of people from across all the divisions. Let's talk about that experience overall and some of the stuff that you were able to do, especially because we were in Washington, D.C. So run us through what that week looked like for you and maybe some of the high points that you got to experience.
It truly was such an incredible experience. The first 2 days were meetings with national SAAC. So that was just primarily us hanging out as a D2 national SAAC, having meetings, going everything that was about to happen at convention. And then we had some award ceremonies, and then we had convention, obviously, on Friday, where we got to listen to some cool speakers. I know Drew Brees was there, so that was pretty exciting to see. And then I had the opportunity to go to Capitol Hill to speak to a House of Senate member, Representative Fleischman. He's out of Tennessee, but one of my SAAC members, he lives in Cleveland, Tennessee. He invited me to go with him. We got to talk to him a little bit about the SCORE Act, which was so awesome. It was such a good experience to be able to step foot in Capitol Hill, in the House of Representatives and the Senate, to just kind of, in our fancy business suits, talk about the SCORE Act, why college athletics is so important to us. So it really was an amazing experience.
Well, a lot of fun stuff to do, a lot of business stuff to do. They cram a lot into that week. And I think we talked a little bit in the last time that you were on about the legislative proposals and the grids and some of the things that were up potentially for debate and going to be on the convention floor in January. So you kind of got to see all that come to fruition. You helped gather some of that feedback from our campuses, from our SAAC. You were able to be a part of a joint council meeting up there amongst the Great Midwest administrators. What was that like? I know maybe sometimes that's not the most fun part. I mean, there were probably other things that you did that may have been a little less, but it's a huge part of what National SAAC does and a huge part of what the NCAA has put a lot of emphasis on is that student athlete voice, and that's where the Student Athlete Advisory Committee comes in. So what were those talks like leading up? I know that you all's voice means a lot, especially in Division II, to the convention floor. And there have been times that student athletes from SAAC have gotten up and spoke it one way or the other. What was that experience like, getting to see all that for the first time and how everything kind of transpired over the week?
It honestly was incredible. I was so lucky to be able to have a seat at the table at the joint council meeting with all of the GMAC. It was exciting because I've never been in a room with so many of the other athletic admin. There was presidents in the room of institutions. It was a completely different table, but I felt very confident because I did know all the GMAC staff and I had friends from Ashland there sitting next to me. So I wasn't too scared, but it was really great because they seemed like they really did care about the student athlete perspective. They asked for my feedback on national SAAC stance, as well as our own conference stance on certain issues. about the proposals that we were about to vote on, because we were doing kind of the straw poll of, hey everyone, how are you guys going to be voting on Thursday or on Friday? And so they were like, hey, Rachel, since you just sat in on national SAAC meetings, has the student athlete voice, have they changed their minds on any of the issues? How do they feel about specifically the 5 years of eligibility thing being referred? So all those different questions, I felt very heard and seen in that meeting, which was amazing because that's what we're here to do. We're here to, represent the student athlete voice and really push for what the student athletes want. So having them listen to me speak, have me at the table in the meeting, it really was an amazing opportunity.
You mentioned the 5 years of eligibility. I think that was probably the hottest topic on our convention floor in Division Two, because I think, and I've mentioned it a couple of times on the podcast this year, but if you aren't familiar, to our listeners out there was a proposal on the convention floor, and it never actually made it to the floor, but we'll leave all the jargon out for you all. But it basically was going to allow Division Two student athletes 5 years of eligibility, with the caveat that there would be like no waivers or anything. So it'd be 5 flat years, if we're going to put it in layman's terms, without medical red shirts and things like that. So it had the potential to snowball and maybe affect some of the other divisions. Or we didn't really know how that was all going to happen. That could have been, and could still might be, now that it's going to be brought back up in 2028, still might be a really monumental moment in college athletics if that were to happen. When you think about the scale of some of the conversations that you've been privy to over the last, let's call it a year, since kind of being elected into that position, and being involved with national SAAC and some of the things that you all do from a monthly basis when you meet, what has that been like as a student athlete? Likely before getting in this position, may or may not have even known all of this was kind of going on behind the scenes. But I think SAAC provides a different perspective to those of you, especially at the national level, as to what maybe some of us in the admin side of things do on a day-to-day basis.
I think it's completely opening the curtains, because I had no clue about any of the legislation proposal, legalities, like order, verbiage, like all these sorts of things that you don't think about. And then you go to the conference level and then up to the national SAC level, where you see, oh my gosh, they take all these things and put periods here, put commas here. Like, they are very meticulous. They make well-informed decisions, and they think about things that no one else thinks about, which is amazing. And that's exactly what they're supposed to do. But having the opportunity to not know a thing and then a year later become chair, feel like I know a lot. It's really been an amazing ride, and I could not have done it without everyone at the G-MAC SAC and all the SAC liaisons on national conference campus levels. I mean, they really are the best. So I think it's a really unique opportunity. There's a lot of doors that open up being in SAC, especially at the conference or at the national level, where you get to listen to all these different speakers. You get to go to these different summits on leadership and stuff like that, where you get to learn a lot of new things. That's something I've definitely appreciated and taken with me. I went to a SSI summit. I went to an NFL summit, but it was like a leadership forum, but I found out that it was more of a marketing thing. So it was less exercise science, but at least I'm putting my name out there in that kind of like role. Having the opportunity to network, I think, is really important and has been an incredible opportunity. I've now created a LinkedIn in the last years. Having those opportunities to meet new people, and you never know where the next door will open. So keeping an open mind, meeting new people, shaking their hand, I think has been really important, and getting new information out there.
I know you haven't been in the seat very long, and there'll be a lot more that comes on your plate as we move towards May and as you get into your term. But I know you've watched former SAC chairs do this role, and you've had a lot of conversations already, I'm sure, with the folks at the NCAA. But what is your goal or hope, or just overall kind of thought process heading into your term as national SAC chair?
I think that the former chair and every previous former chair that I was not lucky enough to meet, but I was lucky enough to meet Avery Helmuth, and she was an incredible Division II national SAC chair who I have huge shoes to fill. She did such an amazing job. I still text her. I'm still reaching out to her because I do have lots of questions. I'm trying to keep that constant relationship. she has been really good about saying, "Hey, if you ever need me, let me know. Like, I'm more than happy to help." She did such a great job. I remember this time last year when I was joining National SAC, she called all the new members individually to kind of build that relationship. So now I find myself doing that exact same thing. So right now I'm currently reaching out to all the new members, having that, 30-minute conversation with them over the phone. So it's a more genuine interaction so I can get to know them a little bit more. But just kind of following her footsteps to try and, have do as good of a job as she did. But I want to create leadership opportunities for everyone. I think having a position that I'm in, I'm able to call upon people to, use their voice, speak up, get into rooms that they want to get into, and kind of make sure that the leadership is spread through everyone so everyone feels like they are important and have a say and can grow their leadership skills. I just stepped down as the community engagement subcommittee or task force lead on National SAC, which hurts because I love community engagement and that's the whole reason I joined SAC. But since my new position to chair, I felt, well, hey, it's, my time has come. I need to let someone else kind of take a lead on that and gain those skills that I gained from that role that led me to chair. So like having that opportunity to kind of step back from certain leadership opportunities to give to someone else because that's what helped grow mine, I think is super important. So being able to foster more leadership skills for everyone across the board, continue to grow relationships and get the name out there about Division II SAC and how important it's been to my life and how it can hopefully be impactful to others as well.
You mentioned some of the subcommittees, and I know that you served on the e-board before you were elected chair. Can you talk about some of the things that you have done on National SAC thus far? Maybe they don't have to do with your position now as chair, but some of the things that may have led you to want to be chair or to help you get elected by your peers there, and just kind of your involvement over the last year with National SAC.
Right. So at the Super Region Convention we had in April, in April, I was voluntold to be a subcommittee leader for the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging subcommittee. I was voluntold by my mentor on National SAC. She said, "Hey, you're going to be a great leader here. I think you should, get your foot in the door and show some leadership skills for this little subcommittee." And I was like, "Okay, don't know what I'm doing." I was like, "Okay, I just joined. Like, sure, if you have faith in me, I'll do it." So then from there, we rearranged goals and had new goal teams. And so then a community engagement subcommittee or task lead came up. And that's what I'm most passionate about. That's how I got involved in SAC in general. I'm currently the community engagement chair at my campus SAC, not even the president. I just run the community service because that's truly what I'm passionate about. And so through that new task force, I stepped into the lead. I ran by myself. No one else ran against me. And so I got into the lead position there. Having that kind of leadership of running the meetings, learning how to speak at a meeting and, the bullet points, the agenda items, learning how to communicate with your team members outside of those meetings and calling upon people to help you. Like, hey guys, I need you to reach out to your conference about this idea. Hey guys, I need you to give me a video feedback on this. So like ways to communicate with others to get what you need for that group. I think gaining those skills is what led me to being like, okay, I think I can do this. Like, this is something I really want to do. I would love to be in this position where I can help build relationships with others. I can help lead by example, different ways of, I think, just growing community. So I think that's kind of the leadership skills, like here and there, that I kind of got not by accident, but just the way things went. And I was like, yeah, I do like this leadership stuff. I think I would make a good chair. So let me just run for it. Why not? So I think with chair, I think it's mostly, it's a lot of behind the scenes. Vice chair is always helping the chair. Internal ops, they do a lot, especially with legislation when that time comes around. So, and then external communications, or they do a lot of the social media. So we do a lot that no one really sees. So, especially coming from the external communications coordinator, I know what that position took. So I'm able to reach out to that current position and being like, hey, I know how much work this was. Let me know if you need something. So having those kind of relationships with my fellow board members, I'm truly excited they're alongside me. I couldn't do without them. They're really great people. So continuing to build relationships is what I love to do. So I'm happy to be here.
To somebody listening who may or may not have ever sat or been a part of SAC, from a let's talk about a weekly, daily, monthly basis, What does your schedule look like when it comes to SAC? How often do you all meet? What different task forces meet? How much commitment are you all giving just with your time and energy to all the other things that you all are doing as student athletes and this on time? I think I just want our viewers to really know how impactful student athlete advisory committee is in their communities, on their campuses, with each other. You now know somebody in all of our division 2 conferences, and not everyone gets the opportunity to say that because those conferences are spread out all over the country, right? We may not be playing schools in said conference because of where we're located geographically. So what does that process look like, and how rewarding has that been to be able to give time, whether it be through community service or the service to your fellow GMAC SAC members, or whatever it might be?
I think it is a large time commitment. I think our campus SAC, we have a meeting every month. At the conference, we meet every other month or so. We have a meeting. National SAC, we do have a couple in-person opportunities. We do super region conventions every other year. So this year we'll only meet twice in person, once in convention, once in July, but then we will have other meetings outside of that. So we will meet, I believe it is we're about to have a new orientation meeting for our new members. But for me and the vice chair, we have biweekly meetings with our SAC liaison. I know the subcommittees or like the task forces, they have a meeting at least once every 6 weeks. It's more of a need meeting. Like, if they're like, we'll schedule a meeting, but if we don't need it, we'll take it off the agenda. Like for community engagement, we are meeting once every 2 weeks or biweekly because we felt we needed more to post about, more to talk about. So it really is just kind of we'll see how this week goes, if we need to meet, if we need to discuss things. So it's a large commitment. It's a lot of being on my phone, I fear, which I know is not good. But if I'm in class and one of my SAC members texts me, I'm going to be like, hey, let me get you the answer real quick, and then go back to listening, because obviously school is important, but there's a lot of things that go on. It feels like I am swamped with meetings like all day long. I don't know how it happens. But I enjoy it. I love being able to talk. I mean, here on my campus, on the national level. So it's really what I'm passionate about. So if I'm busy, I'm glad I'm busy. It's a privilege to be this busy. So I'm very happy.
Well, I asked you this a few months ago when we had you on the podcast, but I'm going to ask you again in case it might have changed. But what's been one of your favorite things that you've done maybe since the last time we've talked, or one of the things that you've been able to take away? Maybe it's from your newly elected position, or maybe it's just from the opportunity to be a little further along in your service with National SAC. But what's something you feel like stands out to you as a memory that you'll kind of always hold with you, or something you've taken away from being a part of all of this?
Something I've definitely taken away, I have felt the most love I've felt. I mean, not to say I don't feel loved. I do. I feel incredibly loved. But being elected as chair, feel like a tsunami of people have been behind me. So feeling that kind of support has been an incredible feeling. And knowing that I have my athletic director behind me, my coaches, my teammates, my high school teammates, my coaches from high school, my friends and family, like everyone was reposting my stuff on Instagram. They were commenting. And even like in the GMAC, I'm playing against these girls on the field for 90 minutes, and then they're reposting my stuff on Instagram is like such a good feeling. So like it's all goes back to the relationships I've been building along the way. So having that new group of national SAC members just roll on, I've had a lot of phone calls, and I'm very excited for them to all roll on. And I'm severely going to miss all the members that just rolled off. Like if I don't know what I'm going to do without them. Thank God phones exist, so I can still text them all the time. But those relationships, it's just, I felt so much support and so much love through my community and everywhere I've been. So I felt a lot of love recently. So that's something that, it's nice to feel, because it's like, okay, I can do this because I have so many people who are standing alongside me. So it's not just me.
From your perspective, being on Ashland's campus, being a women's soccer player, what has your impact been like, knowing some of the things that you have learned through National SAC? How have your conversations maybe with your teammates or your coaches or other folks on campus changed based on maybe some of the things that you've learned about the way that Division II is structured and maybe some of the decisions, do you feel like you're able to have important conversations locally on your own campus based on what you've learned and what you've experienced as a member of National SAC?
I do feel like the conversations I've been a part of have been able to take pieces of them and spread my knowledge. I try to spread my knowledge as best I can, but I went to this SSI summit and I was able to hear about wearable technology and then have conversations about it on campus about why it's good, why it's bad, how we can use it, but how it can also be harmful. So like stuff like that, or everything about legislation. I feel like I can be used as such a tool now because I spend hours in meetings listening to the same thing and asking insane random questions that, really break it down to make it more understandable because it feels like one big bite when you hear all this crazy verbiage. So I think especially around legislation time, it's been able to be helpful having me as a resource, I think, on campus because I'm able to really understand what it means and break it down. But I try if I hear something on National SAC or if there's a question on campus where they're like, "Oh, what do you guys think we should do? How should we raise money for Make-A-Wish for, anything?" And I'd be like, "Oh, well, my friends on National SAC, they did this really cool opportunity," and then kind of bring ideas I've heard back to the table, I think. But that's what's great about Conference SAC too, is we have meetings more often and with a larger group. So having those conversations of, hey, this is what we do, this is what works for us. It may not work for you, but I'm throwing it out there in case it does. Having those constant conversations of spreading knowledge, I think, is so impactful.
If you had to describe to somebody who is listening, who is a student athlete on maybe it's one of our campuses or maybe it's a campus in another division, as we know, SAC is a part of initiative by the NCAA at all three divisions and across all campuses and all conferences. What would you tell someone who maybe didn't know anything about SAC about getting involved? Maybe they don't want to be national SAC chair, but what are some of the ways that you can get involved on your own campus and have an impact? And how important as a student athlete is it to be involved, do you feel like, in SAC?
I think it is important. Obviously, I'm a little biased, but I think the more student athletes' voice you can get in the meetings, the better. On our campus, I know a lot of campuses, it's about two members from each team are at the SAC meetings as like a leadership thing, and there's substitutes if they can't attend. But at Ashland's campus, it's a free for all. So anyone who wants to show up is allowed to show up, which I think is really great so that the more people who want to be involved, the better. Because when it comes down to voting and legislation, they can have those conversations with their teammates and being like, hey, well, I think this way. And, this guy who might be a senior who was forced on this committee may have a completely different opinion than me. But since I'm here, I can share my own thoughts and opinion. It might change the room. So being able to understand that your voice matters and is so impactful, even if you think, I'm just one person on this one team at this one school in this one conference, like it really does matter because if you say the right thing in the right room of people, they'll all listen and, maybe it'll change their mind. So having that kind of no doubt, no fear that, what I'm having to say matters and it might change someone else's opinion, I think is something that I continue to learn from as, sometimes it is scary to speak up in big rooms or with people you don't know. I think having that no fear and just speaking, even if you're scared to, especially about your own experiences and what certain things mean to you and how it matters to you is so important. Just someone else understands what it's like. 'Cause honestly, no one knows what it's like for you. Everyone knows what it's like for them. So saying, well, this impacts me because I'm a soccer player and this is 4 days preseason, that sort of thing. So having those conversations where you're able to use your student athlete voice because you don't know whose minds it's going to change and what impact it's going to have, what comment I end up reading to submit it to National SAC. So if you're able to get in the door with nationals or with your campus SAC, get into the meetings, have conversations with the SAC leaders on your campus about your involvement, whether that's going into community engagement opportunities on campus or supporting other student athletes and going to their games, because that's something we really encourage here at Ashland, or anything like that where you're able to support fellow student athletes, support the community, I think is really important to being on SAC. So making sure you can get in touch with your SAC campus leaders or campus SAC leaders to get involved in ways like that. So even every small step it means a lot.
Well, Rachel, we certainly are proud to have you representing us and Ashland on the national stage, and looking forward to all the things that you will do as National SAC Chair. And once again, congratulations. And we're looking forward to seeing what all comes National SAC's way while you're kind of at the charge of it. So we appreciate you sharing some of the stuff today, and maybe we'll find another reason to get you on before the year is out.
Thank you so much. I'm very happy to be here.
Wanna hear you go.